Hi everyone, welcome back. We've not had a video for a while, but hopefully we'll have a few more coming up fairly soon. Today I've got something for you which I found useful on this channel. It is for if you've got a GitHub repository or a set of GitHub repositories, you can use this technique to see how many people are actually visiting. So the standard GitHub functionality is that you can get like a week of statistics through the interface. It's pretty useful to see short-term what's going on, but not a longer-term kind of a view of how many visitors you're getting or all that kind of thing. So I've set this demo up using a logic app so that we can connect into the GitHub API. We're going to pull those statistics. It's going to trigger once a day, and it's going to collect the previous day's statistics. The reason it's the previous day is just so that we've got a complete day's worth of data. The API does actually return 12 days, I think it is, of data. So we're having to pick one. If we got all 12 days every single day, then obviously it would be harder to maintain the database to ensure that we've got good data. So that's the reason why we're doing it that way. And then we're going to store that into a SQL database for long-term storage. And then finally we'll connect to that with a PowerBI report just so that we can visualize that data. So with that, I hope you enjoy the demo, and if you do, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much. So for this demo, first off, we're going to go into our GitHub account and go to settings from the top right hand corner there, and then go to developer settings. So we're just setting up a personal access token to access the API. So click generate new token, give it a descriptive name. In this case, we're using GitHub traffic demo, and then tick the repo box as that's the permissions that we're going to need to access the repository data. Then generate token. Copy out the actual token, and I'm going to paste it into Notepad. If you lose this, you're going to have to regenerate it. So all you would then have to do is put it back into the logic app later. If you forgot what it was, or if you needed to regenerate it for some reason, if you'd shown it on a video on YouTube, for instance, you would then just regenerate it later, and then the old one is useless. Next up, we're going to create a logic app. So this is going to be the brains of the demo, and this is just going to run once a day and hit that API, copy down the statistics. So hit create new logic app, then give it a name, put it in a resource group. Again, I've created one just for this demo, and then hit create. And then as soon as you've hit create, you can carry on and just create the next thing. For this demo, the only other component we're going to require is a SQL server, or rather a SQL database in this instance. So I'm using the PAS just because it's easier, it's less maintenance management, all of that kind of stuff. You could absolutely use any database. It doesn't have to be SQL Server, it could be MySQL or something like that. So give it a database name, put it in the same resource group, and you're going to have to create a new server. Again, I'm just calling it GitHub Stats Demo. And then give it a username and password. As always, I'm using DemoGod for the demo. And a complex password that I tend to use for demos. Obviously, if you're setting this up for actual usage or production usage, then use a proper password and proper kind of security practices. So next we're going to configure the database, and we're going to choose the smallest database that we can find. Here I actually forgot to hit basic, so it could have been even cheaper than the £11 a month that you're seeing there. But actually, I deleted this straight after the demo, so I don't even think it cost me anything. So hit create. That's going to go through the process and create you a SQL server. Then it's going to set the database up on top of that. This is fairly lengthy in terms of Azure setups, so I've sped this up 1,000 times for the magic of TV, as it were. And so you'll see that mine will complete just there. And then we're going to go into that resource. So first we get into the actual database. So I then click into the SQL server that's associated with it. This is a virtual server. hit the firewalls and networks, and we're going to allow access from Azure services. That's going to allow the logic app to access the database. Then we're going to add the client IP that allows me to run queries against the database. Later on, it'll also allow me to connect my PowerBI to the database and that kind of thing. Again, in production, you would pay more attention to these kind of access controls. But for a demo, I've just set it up with my IP address. It's fine. So then we're going to go to the query editor back on the database. You'll have seen me click back onto that database itself. And in the query editor, we're just going to run a query to set up a table. And I'm being lazy here. I'm just copying it from the repository. So if you go to the demo index, find this demo, and then you can just copy this out. And this is just creating a table with a couple of columns in it. You'll see there that we've got an ID just in case we need to do anything databasey to it. But we've also got columns for what's the repository name, how many viewers the count, and how many unique visitors, as well as a timestamp to tell us what day those stats came in. So next we're going to go into the logic app, and we're going to start with a blank logic app. And the first thing we're going to add is that recurrence. So that's under schedule and recurrence, and we're going to change it to run once a day. And because I'm a control freak, I'm then going to add the parameters to run at specific hours and minutes. This doesn't really matter. Bear in mind that it's UTC is the timing on these, I think. So if you're using local time in your head, it might not be running when you think it is, but you should be able to work that out. So here I've just set it to run at 1300 every day. Next, we're going to initialize a variable. This variable is an array. It's going to be the names of the repositories. As an alternative to this, if you were doing it for production purposes, then you could use the API to get a list of all of your repositories. For my use case, I'm using an array so that I only get specific repositories that I'm interested in the statistics for. As you can imagine, the demos one gets a lot of repositories created and removed, and that would create a very messy database if I just added everything every day. So this is just JSON, so square brackets, and put the strings into quotes, commas after every line apart from the last one. So back on GitHub, you can go to My Repositories under that top right-hand menu again. Just copy out the names of whichever ones you're interested in. Here I'm just picking a backup doc that I've been writing for data platforms plus the DevOps series. In my production version of this, I've actually got all of my kind of long-term demo repositories captured. So next we're going to do a for each loop against that variable. So what this is going to do is it's going to run the API call for each of the repositories in the array. So we're then inside of the for each loop. Make sure you click the add an action within the for each loop, not the one after, otherwise it'll go wrong. We're going to do a get method, and then we're going to put api.github.com /repos / the name of your account, in this case Dave Does Demos, and then we're going to go current item, so this is going to give us the actual repository name, and then after that we're going to add the specific API calls, so in this case traffic / views. Obviously if you were using a different one of the API calls, you would use whatever that spec was. In the headers, type authorization. It's the American spelling of that with a Z, and then copy out the key that we got earlier from GitHub. Paste that in, but we need to put token space before the actual token. All of this is documented on the GitHub docs. I didn't show you them here, but it's fairly easy to find. Then under queries, we're going to put per and day, so you can get different stats from this. I just wanted a daily feed of what's going on. So then we're going to get the response from that. If you were doing this as a proper kind of setup, you might put a thing in just to check that the HTTP call was successful and bomb out if not, or send you an email or something. I didn't do that. I prefer my demos to be simple and show you the specific thing that we're covering. So then we're going to copy this from the demo text. What you can do is use curl or something on the command line, or run this in a browser to get an example response, and you can then generate the schema from that. You can, of course, also, if you have the schema available, you can use that. Then we're going to do another for each loop. There was a array within the response there. If you look at the schema, and each element in this next array is the views for a specific day. So what we're going to do is loop through each of the days that are coming in that variable, using this second for each loop. Views was the array within the JSON response, and again we're going to pass this the data for each element in the array. It's the same schema that we had above. It's just the individual array part of it. I've pasted it there just for simplicity, but you could have copied it from within the above schema as well. So what we're going to do next is look at the timestamp of each of the rows within this, and we're going to compare it to today's date. So what we're going to do is we're going to take today's date, take one day away from that, put it in a specific format to make it easier to compare, and then we're going to put the timestamp from the JSON response into a specific format, compare the two, and we're just going to take any row that's equal to that. So effectively what I'm saying here is, if we've got yesterday's data, keep it and write it into a database. For all of the other rows that are coming back, we're just going to ditch them. Obviously, if you were being really clever about this, you could run it once a week and take the last 7 days, or you could take every row and run it specifically. The problem with that then is, if the spec of the API changes, you don't want your app to break. So I'm pretty confident that yesterday's data will always be present in this API call, but I couldn't be confident they're always going to send 7, 12, 14, 30 days of data. Those kinds of specs do change over time as GitHub improves their service. So you can see the format of these expressions that we're putting in. These are all standard things that you'd use all the time in Logic apps. You can see the code in the demo instructions on the repo. But we're using UTC now to get the current date. Add days -1 for getting yesterday's date, and then the YYYY dash capital M dash DD. It must be capital M's to get the correct formatting. If you use lowercase, it does something different. I think it's minutes. So just be careful on the formatting there. So fairly straightforward. Next, we're going to put a SQL Server in with an insert row. And this action is literally going to take the output of that step, if successful, and push it into the database. So a bit of setup here. We're going to go back into our SQL Server just to copy these things out. So we need the name of the SQL Server, the name of the database. So for this, click into the actual database itself, not the SQL Server, just because it's easier. Copy the server name from the top right, paste it in, and then copy the database name from the top left on the correct tab, and paste that in. And then we're going to put our username and password, in this case DemoGod, and my special secret password for demos. And then the subscription. We don't need to do anything with the gateway because it's all in Azure. It's all publicly addressable, nice and simple. Once that's created, we're then going to choose the database server from the connection, and we're going to choose the database from the connection. And the table name will automatically be queried, so we can just select that. And then we add parameters. These are the things that we're going to insert. So I'm going to select all of those. And then for the repository, we're taking the output from the first for each loop, and that's current item. So that would be the row in the array that we created, which is the name of the repository. Then under count, we're going to go to the second parse JSON task. You have to click see more just to see all of the variables that came out of that parse activity. But here you can see we've got count, we've got uniques, and we've got timestamp. Just select those from that second parse JSON. and then we're done. So if we hit save, then actually when you hit save, it automatically runs the thing once. I then hit run again because I'm kind of demoing it on screen, and you're going to see the successes come up. You can then go through and troubleshoot anything that you need to and see what happened. You can drill in and see the data that was passed to each activity. Then I'm just going to go into Query Editor and select top 1,000 rows. You'll notice here I actually got the same row twice because I did click run and it had already run once. So that's why you'll see the same row twice. One of the repos actually didn't have any data, so there's only data for one of the rows. This is what happens on the GitHub API if you didn't get any views on a specific repo on a certain day. So if you don't get anything returned here, that could be the reason. It's just nobody's looking at the repo. So this is just showing you the Power BI dashboard that I've created. This is showing all of the Dave Does Demos repos, and we can drill in and see specifically for each day how many views each repo had. Over time, here we're showing it by month, but you can drill into days as well. We can see the traffic over time, and I've created a pie chart, but you can create pretty much what you want and just connect to that SQL database in the normal way. I didn't do anything special there. I just hit SQL and put in the server name and stuff. And here we can see repo by time. So who's looking at my book translator thing, for instance, and we can see it's not a popular one. So hopefully you've enjoyed that demo. Please hit the like button below if you did enjoy that, and let me know in the comments what you thought, any improvements you've made to that demo, any changes you'd like to see. It's really good when you guys give me some feedback on these things. So thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.